8:30 p.m. So yes, evening.
Okay. Yeah.
शर्मा साहब नमस्कार
हाँ
शर्मा
जी,
साहब नमस्कार वेलकम
कैसे हैं पटेल जी?
वेलकम मिस्टर अर्नॉल
Thank you.
Dr. GP Patel from Tamil Association of India.
Pleased to meet you. Should I have a mask? A mask on? No.
Arnold, this time you were not in the panel of judges.
No, not this year.
Yeah,
No.
Dave, I was there this time. So before yesterday we had a meeting. So I didn't know that. Okay, you're not part of it. So I was actually expecting to see you there on that day.
I'm sorry. This year they didn't want me as a judge, but you know, most years I am, but not this year. Good evening, Bibin. Good to see you.
पेमेंट कर दो उसके बाद तुम्हारा कॉन्ट्रैक्टर काम करेगा देखते कितना बोलता है मैं तो कर दिया जी पेमेंट नहीं करता उसका बाप करता है
I'm looking forward to being in India next year for the event that you're hosting.
Yeah, next year, let's see, with all the fingers crossed, we don't know really what the state would be, you know. Although they have told us, go ahead, start doing your planning. But with a caution that, you know what happened last time, there is so much of expenditure which has already been done. And so we don't want to do that again. When we will do planning parts now, we will not invest any money. We will not make any hard bookings. Otherwise, you don't know really if the situation changes and all is well. We will go through it. If unfortunately things are not really looking up, then we may have to postpone to do it virtually. Like this time, we will do it virtual. See now, I think take a final call sometime in March, April.
Yeah.
And that's the time. That's the time world over. We're expecting that hopefully some vaccine should be in place. Things should start looking up. Things should start opening up. So we'll have to wait till then.
Yeah, no, I agree. At the moment, it looks grim. Many people are saying that it will be fixed very soon, but I can't see it.
No. It's all wishful thinking. Let's be optimist. Something will come out, but not so soon. I think a very safe estimate that, okay, sometime in the second quarter, maybe around middle of the next year, maybe we'll be closer to what we are wanting to be. So more important is that we have to go through this winter. Of course, you will have summers, but we have to go through the winters.
Well, you know, I've been locked down with a curfew and restricted to only 5 kilometres from my home for nearly 3 months. So through my winter. So it's been very severe in my city. I'm dressing up because I've got nowhere to go. You're the equivalent of me going out. I can't go anywhere. I'm locked up.
Totally, yeah. Okay, Sunil ji, are you online? Sunil?
Patel sir is there, sir. Patel sir is there, sir.
Is Sunil there?
Patel sir is there. So he is Sunil Sharma is busy on another meeting. So Patel sir is there, sir.
Okay, now I just wanted to check that. Okay, are we okay now? Can we start? We will not like to spend any more time. Or you want us to wait for a while?
Just a minute, sir. Patel sir.
How many people have joined in by now?
There are, sir, around 25.
No, we better wait. Arnold, let's wait for another about 2-3 minutes. Maybe more people are joining in.
Just fine.
Yeah,
absolutely just fine.
So there may be a bit of delay, little bit of delay.
Yeah, our experience was the winter here was very bad in my city. We lost control of COVID. and the second wave was much more serious than the first.
Yes.
And that not all of Australia, but my part of Australia, that's what happened.
Okay.
And am I able to confirm that this set of presentations, the three of them, are for younger professionals, like newer?
It's for everyone.
Everyone?
Yeah, there are a large number of young professionals also who have joined in, but we've had very good series, including I think today's lecture is very interesting, and we've had very interesting talks and the presentations. Last month we had 4. This month we have lined up 3. It's working out very well, and we have advantage of having people like yourself who are now, I would say, acknowledged authorities in the world of tunneling. So more and more people are getting the advantage of hearing you, even asking you questions, even getting a chance to write to you. So it's working out well for us.
I like the way that there's no cost for this, that I can be talking with you and I haven't had to get on an aeroplane, and other people can go to their office or sitting at home and have this discussion. I think this is an enormous change for the world, and a good one.
And a good one. One was not when we started, not here, even in the field when we started work from home. Well, for 80% or 90% people, it was new, something very new. It's to a large extent, everybody has own experience, but then I think majority the experience has been positive. It's workable and it's working. In some cases, yes, you can't avoid it. Like project people, no, you can't work from home. You have to be at site. But for people who are back in support offices, in design offices, it's working out very well. I think Patelji, we can start now.
Yes, we have 30 people, sir. So I think you can just.
Others will join. In fact, they are lost if they are not there. But then I will take another 5 minutes to introduce the subject and the speakers. So Arnold, we'll start. I will start with a brief introduction. Okay, good afternoon, everybody on the line. And as people are building up, I thought I will start without spending extra time on this. Well, I think we are very fortunate that today we have one of the very well-renowned personalities in the world of underground space. That is Professor Arnold Tix. I have personally known him for a little more than 4 years now, continuously on various fora that we meet, and more about him a little later. But let me start with one prayer. Okay, like last time, I almost make it mandatory and customary that I expect wherever you are, whichever part of the country, whichever part of the world you are in, you are safe, your family, your colleagues are safe, and you are practicing the safety to its utmost limit at an individual level and at a community level. We all have the responsibility, and I will only start with a very optimist note that hopefully, if not by the end of this year, hopefully by the beginning of the next year, we shall be somewhere closer to getting a vaccine or some other solution so that the world has to move on. Now that's brief. So coming back to our speaker, Professor Arnold is an amazing person. As you will hear him today, he's very articulate, speaks very well, very clear in his head. And what surprises me that if you look into his background, he is a scientist turned lawyer. So he has a legal background and he has scientific background. So when he questions a logic, he puts scientific logic into it and not just the legal issue into it. So it's a very happy mix, and that's what on a number of deliberations I've heard him, and he comes out with fantastic kind of solutions. and very really out of the world, but very legally valid. But that's the point we noted, that all of us today we can come out with very technically innovative solutions. But when you're dealing with the little naughty world of contracts, there are serious issues, and unless you're very careful, there can be mistakes and which can be taken advantage of. Okay. Now, having said that, now I just mentioned to you that in addition to what he is doing now, he is also being a visiting professor in Tokyo City University. Before that, he's been a professor in the University of Western Sydney, where surprisingly he was teaching a very different kind of a subject, that is the mental health, something to do with the adverse conditions and disasters and emergencies. This is a subject, just imagine its relevance in today's world. All of us read so much about that there are stress levels are going high. Eventually this kind of pandemic is creating so many emergencies worldwide. Now, this kind of situations also, it's not man-made disasters, even the natural disasters lead to a lot of stressful conditions, which have a direct bearing and a direct impact on the project planning, on the schedules, on the execution. Now, he's also specialized on that. He takes care on it. I didn't know this. Now, but what is more relevant to us is that he's been leader and also a very active member of the working group on the contractual issues within the International Tunneling Association. Very active, and it's his team, that they've been very successful in launching a complete document through the FITIC, which is no less a feat, and there's a separate book now, Emerald, okay, which is totally dedicated to the underground space, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not aware. And as the world is moving up, as the issues are coming to the front, underground space is very different than the normal construction sequence or normal construction world. It's very different. The challenges are very different. So he's worked on that project, and he's also one of the vice presidents, and not a passive, but a very active vice president on the ITA. Well, I can continue to speak about him, but that's a very brief introduction about Professor. I never address him as Professor, but today I'll call Professor Arnold. Okay, so welcome, Arnold. Welcome on board. And we're going to hear now our second speaker for the day is Bibin. Professor Bibin Thomas, can you show up, please? I can't see you on the camera. Are you there, Bibin? Has he lost the link, Bibin? How come we don't find him here? I thought he joined for a while. Bibin, do you hear me, Bibin Thomas?
Sorry, Bibin Thomas is here. I can see him. His hand is up.
Yeah, can you show up, please? Can we see you on the video? Can you switch on your video, please?
His video is, I can see him on my screen, so I think his video is on, but I'm not sure.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Bibin Thomas is another authority on a certain subject, which is very relevant, very current, and very important. That is the safety, including the fire protection. You know that when we deal with a space like underground space, safety is a major concern. And within the safety parameters, you have to be very careful about the fire issues. Okay, and it's not fire prevention. When I say fire, there's fire prevention. But we know that, well, if your protocols are very tight, your procedures are very good, your SOPs are good, the chances of meeting with an accident are marginalized, okay, are reduced, are mitigated. But still, since we operate in a very unpredictable area, accidents do happen. But unfortunately, if an accident happens, we should not just leave it there. Accident investigation is a very important part. And the lessons that we learn from an accident is also to be shared with the other community so that we don't repeat those mistakes. Now, that is the subject that Professor Bibin Thomas specializes, and he's going to be talking on those two relevant subjects about it. Okay, now before coming to the subject proper, having introduced my speakers today, a word about our Tunneling Association of India. You are well aware, most of you know that we are an old organization in the country. Today we were raised in 1976, and ever since we've been part of the ITA. We conduct training like this one now. We conduct certain webinars. We conduct certain meetings, exhibitions. We represent India in the ITA forums, and we publish certain technical publications and continue to do. Aim is to bring all our academicians, all our students, all our practitioners, all our contractors, all our consultants together. Okay, so that we are at the same page. We think together, we solve problems together, and we are connected with this world. And our co-sponsor always has been the Center of Excellence for the Tunnels. This is a new setup, relatively new setup as part of the National Highway Infrastructure Development Corporation Limited. I always say a word about them. They are new, they are almost now joining with us, and they are most welcome on board. But their aim is also similar like us, but within a government setup, within a government organization. So having said that, now let's come down the turn to the subject proper. There are two subjects for the day. The first one is the renaissance of fairness in ground risk allocation. The new ITA FIDIC Emerald book. I just spoke about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we must understand there is a risk involved, especially in the underground works. Now, risk allocation is something which we need to do. Whether the risk allocation, how much of this is to be proportioned to the client, and how much of it goes to the other party, that is the contractor. Now, clients always would like to pass it on to the contractor, and if it happens, contractor is always at the receiving end. But then the problem is that invariably, because of this confusion, we lose time, okay, and we incur heavy costs. And I think it has been a very unfair kind of an experience of dealing with the contractors. Our aim has been, the client's aim has been to pass on all the unknown kind of risks associated with the job onto the contractor, which is not a fair deal. So this new document talks about, in all fairness, as to how to do the risk allocation. I think we're going to hear more about it from the horse's mouth. He's the one who's been associated with developing this document. We couldn't have got anybody better than him. Second is, I have already introduced that subject to you, that we're going to hear from Dr. Bibin, Professor Bibin. We're going to hear about the tunnel collapse investigations, findings and lessons learned from around the world. Okay, he is going to summarize his experiences and his teachings and his learnings, and he's going to share with us. So I won't take more time. First, over to our first speaker of the day, Professor Arnold Dix. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for your warm invitation and warm introduction. I hope my English is okay for all of your audience, because it's not British, it's not American, it's some crazy Australian version of English, and that's part of what we share. Like, for you in India, for us in Australia, we're both former British colonies, so we have our own special version of English. I need some clarification about the subjects that I'm myself and my learned friend Bibin Thomas is presenting on. My understanding was, and we can talk however you wish, but my understanding was that the first presentation for today, and this is for the first in a series of 3, was on tunnel collapses. But I'm entirely flexible. So is that what the audience are expecting, or are the audience expecting the Emerald book, or are they expecting the fire engineering, or which would you like? Because
we are okay, Arnold. We are okay either way. If in your scheme of things, if that was the way you had planned it, we can switch over to Bibin if he's ready. We have no issues.
Well, actually, my understanding was Bibin's presentation was going to be the next one on the second event like this. There was going to be 3 events, but we could do. That presentation is a joint presentation between myself and Bibin, and we can do that now if you would like us to do that now.
Just suit yourself, Arnold. Okay. The way you have planned, please go ahead.
Okay. So
it's all up to you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever it is. As I say, my English may be a little odd. You've heard a very kind introduction to myself and my learned friend Bibin Thomas. there's going to be 3 presentations, and my understanding is those 3 presentations will be 3 different events. So if you like this first one, tell your friends and come to the second one. And if you don't like it, please don't tell anybody, okay? But I think you're going to like it. And the theme, as has already been discussed, revolves around the fact that I'm not just a lawyer and I'm not just a technical person. I'm a mixture. And because I'm a mixture of the technical and the legal, I can help us, and when I say us, I mean all of us who are involved in tunnelling, do our job and do our job properly in a way that you can be proud, in a way that protects you personally and protects your company and the projects. And if by chance you're in any doubt about how passionate I am about this subject, if you Google podcast Arnold Dick's tunneling or something like that, you'll discover some podcasts where I talk about the fact that what we do, and I mean what all of us do individually, is we are helping our societies with the fundamental things that allow our civilizations to prosper. It's very noble. Actually, even though I'm a lawyer, I see that as the less noble part of my dual professions. It's the fact that we help provide water. It's the fact that we help provide sanitation. It's the fact that we help provide power. It's the fact that we provide transportation, these core requirements for our civilizations, for our communities, that really drives me to do things like this, to share information and talk. And because you're in India, and India shares a lot of the history of Australia because of the British influence, a lot of the legal themes that I talk about are relevant to you, because actually they're universal within this this part of the world that has this this British theme in the legal system. I mean, we've rejected the British long ago, just like you have, but the theme is still there. So let me begin with the first presentation. Now, there's going to be 3 in this series. Tunnel collapse, which is the one now, and that's going to talk about predicting the future and how things go wrong. The second presentation next time, which I hope to see you again, is going to be about contractual matters and standards, as has been spoken about. And that's really interesting because it's a flavour of the new world order in how we do our business. And I think the final one, and I'll speak with Bibbin about this, is fire engineering. So very much core engineering, practical engineering, and we're going to take you on a journey and share with you the reality in the field of doing proper fire engineering audit and inspections as part of delivering safety. So without further ado, I'm going to start the first presentation. There should be just one tonight, today, this afternoon, this morning, whatever it is. I'll just get it open on my screen, and then I'll go to share screen. I'm having a fight with my computer. Just bear with me one moment. I'll go to the share screen. Tunnel collapse. My goodness, why is this not working? This is presumably is what happened to you as well just a few minutes ago with the tunnel, with it not working. Open. Right, now I think I'm there. Apologies for the slight delay. And can you see tunnel collapse investigations, findings and lessons learned?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So I've called this tunnel collapse investigations, findings and lessons learned from around the world. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, this is real. Everything I'm about to tell you is real events. These are real events that I've investigated where people have died. This is not some academic exercise. I'm not talking theory. And you'll see that the actual projects in which the people have died are hidden from you. You can't tell where I'm talking about. I couldn't be more serious. I have seen the bodies of young engineers who have been killed in projects. This is absolutely 100% the real deal. So what's the problem? Well, part of the problem is for us as professionals, as engineers, me with my engineering hat on, we are, in a very real sense, fortune tellers. We're in the business of predicting and managing the future. We're entrusted by our communities with helping to prioritise limited resources. Look out the window wherever you are, anywhere in the world right now. People want housing, people want education, people want water, they want sewerage, they want policing, they want. We are entrusted with a proportion of the money available to a society to build infrastructure, to build these tunnels, not because people love tunnels, not because someone worships tunnels, but because of what they deliver to our community. And we have to help prioritise those precious limited resources to deliver a future for our people on the planet. It's about predicting the future. And this future predicting goes wrong. It goes terribly wrong. And do not think and do not believe and never be even half persuaded to think that it only occurs in particular countries or it only occurs, somewhere else. It occurs everywhere. This is an image from Germany, February 2009. People died here, collapse. This is in Cologne. I'm not sure if any of you have been to Cologne, a beautiful city, and collapse. It was Germany's biggest tunnel project. And in the middle of the city, in the most special part of the city, with huge cultural heritage, it collapsed and killed a whole lot of people. And this is just some images showing the houses ripped in half. This is in Germany. I'm not sure what your experience is when working with German companies or German people, but you could be forgiven, or at least I could be forgiven, for thinking nothing bad happened there. It happens everywhere. Predicting the future is no easy task. It was just a cut and cover crossover box that collapsed. The collapse of this particular comparatively simple structure caused, of course, the collapse of the buildings above. And what was the reason for the collapse? Well, for those of you who work in the field, our good old-fashioned, usually somehow involved, not always, given you've got the Himalayas in your country, you get some other big forces as well, but often, water and silt, some sort of continuity issue in the rock mass, some sort of dissolution process, whatever it might be, caught them out here in Germany, causing everything to collapse. It's one of the biggest liability losses in the history of Germany at around 90 million euros. And the client, the company, and here's another important message, the client had a 30-year plus loss-free track record. They were a top-tier grade A company. They were Germany's top civil contractors. All right. My point is, it can happen to anyone. This predicting the future, this doing our job as engineers, this discharging our special skills, this understanding the risks and managing them is predicting the future, and it's not easy. Never easy. Just because it worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. Here's another one in Munich. We're in Cologne. So another collapse in Germany. Not easy. Across to the United Kingdom with the Heathrow Airport collapse. Again, our colonial masters in the United Kingdom, you could be forgiven when you talk to them. You'd imagine that everything they do is perfect. Newsflash, it's not. Just like us, no matter where we are in the world, our job is hard because we're predicting the future. We've got limited resources. We have to deliver the projects. The risks are complex. We can only do our best, and we're only human. My point is, it happens everywhere. South Korea, China, okay? So that's all very nice. That stuff's all in the public domain. And by this stage, you're either interested or you're not interested. You might be, oh, I'm not really interested. If you're not interested, listen a little closer, because you should be interested. And the fact that you're online tells me that you're a professional. I'm trying to tell you about the fallibility of us as people, as engineers doing our job. I'm trying to share with you how things can go wrong so easily. And it's important to me to share it because I investigate disasters. Let me share with you a real disaster. No names, no dates, but a real disaster. So here's my investigation team, and I have 2 secret weapons in this investigation team. I have 2 women. Now, why do I have 2 women in my investigation team? I have 2 women because I need information, and I need information from men. And often I find that men are less scared of talking to women, and women have a better manner about them to talk to men who, for example, have been seriously hurt, or someone's just been killed or whatever. I really, really appreciate the manner of a woman. If that's sexist, I stand accused, I'm sorry, but it's been my experience in investigation. So I've got also different nationalities in my team so that I can be culturally sensitive. Why would I do that? My friends, ladies and gentlemen, the people whom often are doing the hardest and highest risk work in our projects throughout the world are often not from the countries in which you're working. And so in this particular case, which I can't mention where it is, I was dealing with miners from Bangladesh, from India, from the Philippines, and from Africa. And so I had to be sensitive to the cultural aspects when talking to them. When I'm investigating death, never in our professional context, never, ever, ever have I found that someone has intended to kill somebody else. So I'm speaking to you now. It's like a lawyer. I'm a lawyer unplugged, okay? When I'm doing an investigation, I know there's a couple of exceptions where someone's done something bad and they've been killed in a tunnel, like have a piece of equipment squash them against the wall or something like that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking catastrophic failure in an underground context. It's never intentional. So if it's not intentional, what is it that I'm looking for? I'm looking carefully for the evidence of the professional conduct. I'm looking for who did what and why. I'm trying to find out who's the boss and who's doing what they're told. Because newsflash number 2 is mostly the sort of people that are doing the construction work here will do exactly what they're told because they're desperate for work. And in my experience, the responsibility tends to lie with the supervisors and the engineers above them. And that, my friends, is us. You, me, we. It's us. We are entrusted with the well-being of the people you see in this picture. And I'm not going to do it, but I know who was responsible for the deaths in this incident, and I could put the arrow over his head right now, but I'm not going to do that. So when I'm investigating, one of the first things I do is I try and find out how was this particular construction meant to be undertaken? The method statement, call it whatever you like in whatever country you're in. And I'm assuming that for each of you who are listening, if you haven't worked in other countries, you will one day. And so the words might change, but inevitably there'll be a document, a piece of paper, a something which defines how a job should actually be done. And when I investigated this disaster, remembering this isn't theoretical, what I'm telling you about, this is real. This isn't some hypothetical from a university exam. This is the real deal. When I investigated this particular incident that resulted in deaths, the method statement contemplated bad ground. It contemplated injection grouting. It contemplated rock bolts. And it contemplated 1 metre excavation drives. So as part of my investigation with my lawyer's hat on, investigating a real disaster, I now had in one hand a message from the engineers who were responsible for drawing the method statement, presumably the design engineers somewhere behind them. And there were key risk management procedures as well. In the method statement, so in the documentation that was defining how to build this tunnel, in relation to this, which was cross passages, my favourite, I love cross passages because they're so much more difficult than the main drives. The method statement for the cross passages talked about temporary support, and the method statement for the cross passages said specifically, during excavation, access of workers below unsupported rock is strictly forbidden. That's what the paperwork says. I'll say it again. In the paperwork that has come down the chain of command from the designers, in the paperwork which is based upon the geotechnical investigation, plus the findings from other tunnels, the other drives as they've gone past this location. This is a revision, so it's a revision 4. During excavation, access of workers below unsupported rock is strictly forbidden. It's a message from the engineers about foreseeing the future. It's a message about the future where they're anticipating something going wrong and the potential for injury. The future was partly foreseen. They knew this was dangerous. The ground in this particular location, the designers knew was poor. In what I think is a perverted use of the English language. They defined Class A rock as fair, Class B rock as fair to poor, and Class C rock as poor. Come on. Just that, for me, as an investigator, is wrong. Because if you're not an engineer or you're not familiar with underground construction and someone says to you, this is Class A rock, you could easily be forgiven for thinking that the ground was Class A, that it was good, but it wasn't. It wasn't good. It was just fair. That's as good as it got. And it went from fair through to fair to poor to poor. I don't think the construction team even understood this ever until it collapsed and killed people. When you look at the cross passage, so this is a real cross passage. We're looking at an area before it collapsed, before the deaths. Now, I'm not sure. I need some feedback. Can you see my little arrow on the screen at the moment? Can anybody, if anyone's there?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yep. So you see these little lines along here. These are little discontinuities in the rock which have silt, just silt in them. And although the excavation is proceeding very well here, and you can see the temporary support that's been put in, this drive here, if you were following the method statement, should not have been more than 1 metre. And even in this photograph, a historical photograph before the people were killed, you can see that they've driven more than 1 metre. So as an investigator, before I even go one step further, just looking at some old photographs which were taken on a daily basis just to document progress, I can see that the method statement isn't being followed. And I can see that there are some discontinuities in this rock. What they didn't know, well, actually they did know, but it failed to be communicated to the team working down here, is there was a discontinuity just above the crown, just like this, a discontinuity just above the crown that you couldn't see. Lesson number 3. God did not create us to see through rock. Right? We do not do well underground because we can't see through rock. We don't know what's there until we touch it and feel it. And yes, we can do bores and yes, we can do all the rest of it, but Mother Nature has a way of surprising us. And when Mother Nature surprises us, in my experience, given my line of work, it tends to kill us. So even in this photograph that I'm sharing with you right now, the trap is set. The trap is set just here. This is a crossbar. The trap is there. These men who are here, they are at risk of death at the time this photograph was taken, yet there's no warning of it because immediately above the crown is a very thin layer of silt. And here is another picture of the excavation, just again, just showing workers in there excavating, just doing a drive, and then they'll put in the support. Okay, nothing remarkable about that, except you see how this layer, if you go back to your geology, the bedding of that is almost parallel to an entirely horizontal with this drive. It's running exactly along the line of this cross passage. It couldn't be in any worse position if there was such a discontinuity immediately above the crown. It's called coffin cover in the trade, coffin cover, because they say the lid of your coffin is just sitting above you. And then it collapsed. And in this photograph, what you can see here, this is the roof that collapsed. The very, very fine layer of discontinuity here on the top of this rather planar surface here. And the people who were killed were underneath this. Okay? It's just that simple. Rule number 5, our heads don't do well even with a small rock. We're not very strong. We're not built to have big rocks fall on us, and you just die if you're lucky. And now, when we look up, there's the coffin cover. That little thin line is the bedding plane for the equivalent, well, not the equivalent, but a similar discontinuity in the rock, which is just running along the crown. And that whole section of roof has just fallen out as one piece and killed the people who were working below. And there's further evidence here about what happened. If we look carefully, here's some evidence. In the method statement, it was meant to be a 1 metre drive and then put in the support. But look, it's more than 1 metre. You can see that. You can see the lattice girder here that's being put in place. You're not meant to put the lattice girder at the end and work your way back. You're meant to put the lattice girder up here, near where you've already provided the support, and work your way in. Why? So this doesn't happen. So you don't have the roof fall on your head and kill you. This underground prediction of the future, it's a serious matter. Yet for me as an investigator, I know that the design is new. I know that the method statement contemplated it, but there's a disconnection right here. Here at the cross passage, people like you, like me, could have been any one of us, for whatever reason, we weren't prepared to do our job properly and actually follow the procedure that we meant to. Instead, we were doing shortcuts. We were trying to accelerate production. Who knows what exactly we were trying to do, but we weren't doing what we were told. Or were we? Because you see, actually, this is what I just spoke to you about. That's the reaction of somebody who's not real. I did that. That was for the theatre of not real. The reality is these miners did what they were told. They did exactly what they were told. They died because they did what they were told. They died because the engineers like you, like me, we were trying to make them go faster. That's why the drive was bigger. Forget all the complicated intellectual stuff. This is all about going faster. Even though the method statement said not to. It's about predicting the future. It's about our responsibilities as professionals. This is the real deal. This is not, this is not some academic discussion. This is actual lives lost. And when I approached the site and you look at it, you can see better now in this cross passage. You can see the weep holes on the side. So we've obviously got a bit of water problems here. There were, in the method statement, there were requirements for relieving the groundwater pressure, and you can see some groundwater relief there as well. You can see the mesh just sitting here on the side. You can still see the poor person's ladder there. And you can imagine the team dying under this section here. So I do an investigation. I'm going to share with you how I investigate it, because this is something also mostly you'll never hear about until, well, hopefully you'll never hear about it. But I investigate. So I want to just share a little bit about how I do that. I had a look and tried to understand how this process was going with the lattice girders and the spraying, spraying in the support, because I don't know what happened. I have to just go and look and touch and feel. I went out and had a look at the mined material and did something that I absolutely recommend to all of you. Get dirty. Get dirty. Like, we're not in an academic context. We're building tunnels. So I put my hands into that rock and I felt it. And I got to say, it was poor. I don't care what the English words were to describe it. It was poor. And I engaged with the design team, and the design team flew in, and they were terrific. And as I mentioned to you before, the design team knew exactly why the method statement was as it was. The design team contemplated bad ground, but the translation of that method statement into how the actual works were being conducted was perverted because of the speed. And I also went and looked at other sections of the completed tunnel for evidence about groundwater ingress, anything like a forensic investigation. I wasn't just content to look in the cross passage. I wanted to understand the context. I wanted to understand the ground disturbances the TBMs had passed on either side of this particular location of the deaths. I wanted to understand what knowledge had been gained when the TBMs passed and how that knowledge had been used. And I also wanted to understand the miners. I wanted to understand their state of mind. You know, what are these people like? And generally miners, in my experience, are risk adverse, but they do what they're told because they've got to feed their family. And I also went and investigated other things. I just wanted to understand what entirely was going on, not just what might be investigated from a textbook. I discovered something interesting. I discovered that at almost exactly the time that the roof collapsed, there was a breakthrough at a station box just a little way, a few hundred meters away. Now, why is that important? My friends, as technical people, if you've ever been to a tunnel breakthrough, have you ever felt the boom? Have you ever felt the ground move when that big face of rock falls off? Lesson number 6. Do not underestimate the power of your eyes, your ears, and every other sense God has given you. It's nice to have a tertiary education, but be wide open to information of whatever sort and be prepared to think laterally. My friends, here is a potential trigger, in substance, a seismic trigger for an event down in that cross passage. And when I linked up the times of the collapse with the time of this breakthrough, they aligned. But I did more. I got up on top of buildings and looked down upon the site, looked down upon the area. The actual deaths occurred somewhere down under here. And I just wanted to have a look at what was above. Now, why would I do that? I want to do that because I'm an investigator. And my message to you, this is message, I think I'm up to number 6, is do not underestimate an investigator, because when I'm investigating, my eyes are wide open and I'm looking for all factors. And for you as engineers, my goodness, please think of all these other factors as you do your job. That's our duty to our society, to our projects, to ourselves. And what did I find when I looked down from above? I found another TBM. So not only have I found, coincident with the falling of the roof, killing the people, the breakthrough in the station box, I discovered another little TBM. Nothing to do with the metro in which the collapse occurred. And so then I tried to work out the comparative alignments between the metro, the cross passages, and this little TBM that went across here. And it turned out, as luck would have it, that at about exactly the same time that there was a tunnel breakthrough in the station box, and at exactly the same time that the roof collapsed, a little tunnel boring machine was crossing over the alignment of the cross passage and the main metro tunnels. So I've got, on the one hand, I've got just a simple method statement, but now what I'm discovering is a lack of coordination between a whole lot of different activity. I've got a completely different company doing a completely different project with a completely different TBM right above my cross passage. I've got a breakthrough in a station box just a few hundred meters away. I've got disturbed ground because I've had a tunnel boring machine do two passes, one pass for one tunnel, one for the other. As engineers, as professional people, as citizens, as decent human beings, our duty to predict the future is more than just out of a textbook. You have to be open to context, eyes open, ears open. You see the convergence of events which is occurring. And here's one of my team talking to one of the people who wasn't killed, and actually coincidentally both Indian, and they, I think, were able to communicate in Hindi. There was the local languages were different, but they used Hindi. And this particular man only told my engineer Dina what was going on, I think, because of her gentle approach with him. He was so scared. He was so scared that he was going to lose his job. And what was he telling her? He was telling her that he just did what he was told. He was telling her that other people had been injured, but that they'd been taken away and hidden because they didn't want to get into trouble. He was telling her everything, and he was just happy to tell her that story. And just as a little aside, notice there's no textbook, no pen, no piece of paper. My friends, in the end, we're people. Do not underestimate the importance of just being a decent human being when talking to another. Yes, we're engineers. Yes, we're technical people. But this man had lost colleagues and friends who'd been killed and was terribly scared. Just talking, making them feel comfortable is enormously valuable. So what do? I head off to the core shed because I've got a few ideas now about what's going on. And I get the cores, which were taken very close to where this cross passage collapsed. And what do I find? I find another thin layer of incompetent material exactly above the crown of the cross passage. I'm going to change my numbering system now. Lesson A, geotech information should be used. The project knew that there was a weak layer immediately above the crown of this tunnel. It just never got communicated down the line. And this is me looking at the evidence of it. I found it was open to anyone to find. It's not because I'm a genius. I just had a look. Of course, these sorts of events create a whole lot of government interest. And again, if you're working overseas, do not underestimate when something happens and people are killed. You've got the very real chance of ending up in prison. So this is a very serious matter, and this is just part of the investigation team, the government, what have you, doing the investigation. We do lots of inspections and all those sorts of sensible things. The records. When I examine the records, I find this. I find that the project knew about the weathered nature of the rock, and the project knew about the weakness, and it was all documented. And that's why the method statement seemed conservative. To the people in the field, the 1 metre drive seemed outrageously conservative. But it was correct. It was correct because the rock was so bad, even though it was called Class A, B and C. And when I looked at the cutter inspection log, so when they stopped the TBM, what I found there actually illustrated by the geologist at around about the point of the cross passage was this little discontinuity line here. So not only did the bore contain the information, but the TBM had encountered it and it had been mapped. When I looked deeper into the reports from the design team, they had words like, considering the thin layer of joint sets and hydrogeological condition, rock bolt support combined with weep holes is recommended. They knew that this was difficult ground conditions. The cross passage had no special instructions for the team. We know, and I'm sure you know from your work as well, that soft rock is easily over-excavated, and from a stability point of view, over-excavation's a bad thing. We want those nice arches. We want nice, neat cross passages. And there was a lot of pressure in this project to get things done because of over-excavation and the complexities that it caused. And this is just another close-up of some of the rock. So in this investigation, what I found was the project had imposed absolute prohibition on working under unsupported rock. Clearly, the designers had made it clear, do not work under unsupported rock. The method statements contemplated poor quality rock and localised rock bolting, grouting, lattice girders, water, hydrogeological relief, what have you. The local cross passage team were overconfident and under-expert. Overconfident, under-expert. The poor quality of the rock wasn't understood by the cross passage team. They weren't wise. The miners knew because they're miners, but the supervisors who were directing them were not experienced in underground construction. Production rates were overwhelmed and overwhelming the method statements. There was such a drive for production that the method statements were being ignored. And the wet weak rock above the crown wasn't communicated, even though it was identified in the logs, even though it was identified during the intervention in the tunnel boring machine. My conclusion was that the procedures were not followed on purpose. Not followed on purpose. My friends, this is where the legal system in India, the legal system in Australia, the legal system in countries with our legal heritage, this is where you get into big trouble, because this isn't an accident. This is totally unprofessional. And that's part of my message to you. Please be professional. You can't predict the future. I get that. I understand that. You can't. But you can do your job properly. You can be professional. You can discharge your obligations responsibly. That part you can do. The stability of the local tunnels generally was confused with localized stability. That is, the stability in the local location, in that very, very localized location, was confused with overall stability. And criticism of the cross-passage team, and there was criticism, this is of the senior people, was rejected wrongly on the basis of cultural bias. And if you're involved in an international project, you'll see this all the time. For those of you who've worked overseas, it's disgusting, but it's just how it works. You have a whole lot of nationalities and they play a game of paper, scissors, rock, and it depends which passport you've got, who rules. Not what's right, who's right. And it kills people, because what's right's what's right. It doesn't matter what passport you got. It's what's right. That's what science is all about. That's what engineering is all about. It's not about passports. It's about what's right. And the miners simply did what they were told to do. And the engineers took unreasonable risk. And the project was pushing on just too fast and too hard. And the method statements weren't being revised or even followed. So what does that all mean? Well, it means if you cheat, if you don't do your job properly as engineers, if we don't discharge our responsibilities as professionals, we kill people. And it's bad engineering. You can't manage risks if you don't understand them. That's our job. That's why we're professionals. We can't see the future, but we can have a really, really good crack at managing it as long as we're true to our profession and we're intellectually true. And this fascination with always going faster, it's okay. It's okay to go faster if you understand what you're doing. You could go faster if you change the method statement. You can't go faster just by ignoring the method statement. The wisdom is what we bring to the projects as engineers and professionals. The wisdom, it's the essence of what we do. That's the lesson. There is no shortcut to this. We can't predict the future. We can at best manage the risk. We cannot predict the future, but please do not be that person who forgot what they are trained to do, who forgot to look after their fellow man, who forgot the importance of the engineering and science. Don't be that person. Me or some other investigator will come find you, but even leave us to one side. Trust me, if people die as a result of your misconduct, you never forgive yourself. And if you can forgive yourself, then you're not much of a human being, because we've got a duty to do our job properly. Now, if you're doing your job properly and people die, that's sad. And of course you want lessons learned, but we can deal with that because that's our job. But it's not our job to kill people by not discharging our duties correctly. That's not it. Never was. We don't get paid to do that. No matter what you might think, that's not it. So, predicting the future. Well, who would have predicted 2020? What a dud year it's been. Conclusions. We can't tell the future. We can risk manage the limited resources that we're entrusted with by our societies on our projects. Wise is much better than smart. Smart is grossly overrated if smart has some other horrible word attached to it. Be wise, be professional, discharge your duty responsibly, properly. Learn from other people's mistakes. Like this. That's why I'm sharing this with you. I'm just showing you how easy it is to get it wrong and how easy it is to have avoided a problem. If possible, keep your own record of your decisions. If you're involved in a project like a diary or something, keep one for yourself. It's just handy when someone like me comes along. If you can say, look, I was concerned about such and such, and I expressed my concern to my boss, but my boss said to me, no, it's okay. You just keep doing it the way I tell you. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. Just keep a record of it. That's about looking after yourself. Nothing nasty about that. I'm not meaning maliciously. Just look after yourself. Keep a diary. And if you do that, if you behave as a professional, if you discharge your duty with that learning and experience that you've got, as we use these limited resources of our society for a better future for all of us, there's nothing more I can ask of you with my lawyer hat on. And there's nothing more I can ask of you with my person hat on, just as a citizen. It's all I want. And that, my friends, are some lessons from the real world, real deaths, real situation, and what I found in an investigation. And I really would welcome your questions, if that's possible. And I'll just turn my screen sharing off. Just go screen, oops. How do I do screen share off? And I think I'm back. Can you see me again? Is my screen sharing off?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if there's anybody, if anybody has some questions. Oh, there's a hand up from, is that, will I just take the questions? Is everyone happy if I do that? Can I ask, is it Piyush Singh? Is your hand up? Or have you done that by mistake? Hello? Bibin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Don't say where any of those pictures are from, okay? It's a secret. We have to, there can be no discussion where it was. Obviously, it's for just sharing here amongst friends.
Yes.
Has anybody got a question for me? Aaron, Kumar Aaron has a question. Are you there?
I think the coordinator need to switch on the mics for them.
Oh no. Okay, so, well, I can see that.
You're able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, who's that?
Yeah, Arun Kumar. Yeah.
Hi, Aaron.
Yeah. I'm based in Qatar. Actually, I've come across this NATM tunneling, which I personally visualized all the things going by the length, 1 meter or 1.5 meter or 2 meter, depends on the design as well as the site assessment. Okay. Apart from the technical assessment, what we do, it also depends on the safety. I feel the project that you showed, even the safety was compromised. Like even the safety, it's the responsibility of safety apart from the technical team or the cross process team, right? The safety manager who is at the site has to be held responsible as well, equally, apart from the design team.
Yeah, yeah. Look, you're right. Wherever mysteriously that event might have come from, yes, there has to be responsibility with the safety manager, and where the facts reveal themselves, like I revealed them to you today, it's pretty clear that something's gone very wrong on the safety management side, I think. You'd agree?
Yes, yeah, sure, because it's equal responsibility, both as well as technical and when I do personally, I ensure I go along with safety and I do the face mapping record and assess the RMR value, and based on that, you get the gradings. So depending on that, your design shop drawing gives the length to proceed with. If it's very poor, you're going to proceed with 1 meter or even less, 0.5, 0.6 meters. If the rock strength is quite high, say something more than 50 or 60, okay, RMR value, then you can easily proceed with 1.52 meter. And a site visualization has to, geotech has to monitor continuously during even the excavation as well, because he may come across the discontinuities as it was visible in your slide. During that time, it's unexpected. Okay, so this can be taken into consideration, and you can proceed accordingly. But the geotech should be monitored regularly, even it's midnight or if it's midday, something like that. Because I used to do the same thing. And I never used to allow any of the person going through without assessment. Once assessment is done, then I allow the people in entering the field of the tunneling, the anatomy tunneling part.
No, I think they're really useful comments. I'm interested in your reaction to the presentation. I don't think I've made it theatrical. Could you see that's just a factual presentation? Like there's nothing remarkable really about what I showed in your experience?
Yes, it's an example, but I feel there's too much has to be done from the technical side. From International Tunneling Association, what I see is we don't have the standard template for the assessment to be done. For example, for the face mapping, this is what I feel, because even I was searching in, we don't have the if you go contractually or technical specification, it doesn't give the guidance properly for the lateral tunneling. The systematic approach that to be done, so that in cases of the situations where there's a collapse, whether usually there's a fight between the contractor and the client, so he has to take the responsibility or he or them. So it always delays the project, and it's not a good as the overall project progress is concerned.
Thank you for your comments. I see Aaron Kumar is got his hand up.
Yes.
You.
Yes, it's me. Yeah, I'm based in Qatar. Yeah.
I'm not saying where that was. And is Singh Piyush has hand up? Is
Hello, Professor Rahul Sharma this side. I have one query from you. Can I raise my query?
Yes, please do.
Professor, as I go for your presentation, I found it is more based on urban tunneling. But in case of a tunneling in Himalayan region, I'm always worried when we going for a tunneling of 13 to 20 kilometer reach and some kind of observation, geological observation, which somehow escape from the workers who work in a tunnel, because it is quite difficult for them to assess to point situation, as you showed in the presentation that sometimes it is discontinuity and bedding plane is not up to mark and still phase drive is continuous. So for mountainous tunneling, for tunneling in a Himalayan region, what you suggest, how we proceed, and in what manner we can make these heavy reaches tunneling safer for a future?
Look, you've just asked one of the hardest questions that you could possibly ask. I've had the fortune of actually inspecting some Himalayan tunnels, and I was lucky enough to be taken to the Terry Hydro scheme. and had a look in some of the chambers for that. And the dynamic nature of that environment, the incredible depths, the pressures, the temperatures, the hydrogeology, it's, to my eyes, obviously some of the most extreme tunnelling in the world. I mean, because you can't. You just, and in a sense, you're committed to a particular drive, and it's just a case of dealing with whatever you find because you don't have the information. You can't have it. You might have a few kilometres of overburden, so you're never going to have the material.
So that's why, because your second part, that is the investigation, is somehow lacking in mountainous region, and we still want a safe tunneling in such a kind of uncertainty zone. So it is quite difficult for tunnelers to go ahead and make the pressure tunnels, especially for longer length and a safer way. So somehow I want one presentation from your side on hydroelectric tunneling as well.
Yeah, so what I've seen, there's some very recent innovations in technology for extreme tunnelling under, with no geotech information. And the best material I've seen in recent years has come out of China. And there I've seen a combination of both sort of, it's almost like ground penetrating electric radar, but it's not that. It's got a special name and I can't remember what it is, but where water bodies, voids, and areas of high fracture, shear zones, what have you, can be detected using a sort of a...
Basically, it's a geophysical methods. Basically, it's a geophysical method.
Yeah. And another one where they put rams on the side of the TBMs and they bang the TBM and basically send another geotech method where they send an energy wave.
I still looking to all the world tunnelers that Himalayan is really contradictory with the TBM. We are still trying, as working in a hydroelectric power corporation, we are working a lot with the TBMs, but still our confidence is more in DBM as compared to TBM in case of a Himalayan region.
Yeah. Look, the whole world takes its hat off to anybody trying to punch holes under mountains that are kilometres thick and active geotechnically. I mean, it's and even the Japanese, with the issues they've faced in some of their terrain, where again they've gone deep and it's hot and fractured and what have you. You're at the edge of what humanity can do underground, and I think the first step is, just as you said, acknowledging that this is so difficult, and you cannot expect the unexpected. And I'm sure you've seen it, and I've certainly got the video, but I can't share it, of the catastrophic events that occur if you pierce, say, a subterranean water body. I mean, you just kill everybody in the tunnel, with the burst. And I don't think you or I want to share those sort of videos, and you've probably got them too. So I think technology is going to have an increasing role in the future. And I know my understanding is you've still got a very ambitious hydroelectric program in the Himalayas to support your industrial growth in India. So it's essential for your, I forget which plan it is, but you need all your hydro to come online, and it's just so hard. Have I misunderstood it, or am I vaguely?
No, true. You are exactly. You are on the point.
Yeah. So sorry, I wish I did. If I did, I would be a happy man, but I don't. But as I say, if you're interested, drop me a line. I can send you the details of the technologies I'm aware of at the moment. I know the International Tunnelling Association granted an award for one of those. I think it was last year or the year before. And of course, the other thing we're doing is the autonomous TBMs. So to minimise the number of people who are exposed to the risk of being killed by making the TBMs a little more autonomous.
I wish so. It will be work in a future, but now for present scenario, it is quite difficult because geological uncertainty is very large. So when we're going
Yes.
for autonomous TBM, it is still not quite predictable for work as well.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it will be.
Yep. I do agree with you. It's early steps. It'd be lovely if we all had sandstone. But it's not
Surely,
what
surely.
we've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Professor.
Thank you very much for your absolutely correct observations. Can I ask, has somebody else got a question? I can't quite see the list of hands at the moment. Anybody else there?
Yes.
Um,
So some question are in the chat box, sir. If you
in
could
the chat
please-
box.
Yes.
Oh, you're going to show my age now. I have to go to the chat box. Let's have a look. The little, here we go. Yes. Face mapping. Okay, we discussed the face mapping. What precautions should be taken during the portal work? So this is a question from Jahashri Sahu. I'm assuming, I don't know what context. Are you there somewhere, Jahashri? Is this in an urban context or in a mountain context, or what sort of context are we talking?
So this is Himalayan region, mountain context I am.
Okay, so if you can, from the portals I've seen in the Himalayan area, they're extremely high risk, the whole portal development area, with usually, from what I've seen, very steep conditions, quite a unconsolidated sort of regolith above, and getting that portal area even vaguely safe, just from simple things like, rock slides and what have you. I've noticed, again, with my limited experience in India, often your portals are up valleys, some way up the valleys. So even the sorts of issues you have down on the floodplains, just with your very high, water events, obviously you've got to protect for them. I'm not. What sort of issues are you facing at the moment? Have you had catastrophic failure at your portals even before you've got started?
So the rock fall we are facing while construction. The rock is very slated. It is like fractured rock. So when we excavated, the rock fall is continuously coming. The portal is going little back. The overbreak is a little higher. So as much we wanted to excavate more than that is going away from the exact location. So I wanted to know what type of measures we should take during construction, and is it like the rock fall net will additional to rock bolts, will the rock fall net will protect the work or not?
Yep. I think I understand what you're asking. And forgive me, you collectively are the experts on Himalayan tunneling. Okay, so here's me as a foreigner giving a lecture, but I've never actually worked in the Himalayan conditions. I've only observed them, and I have worked in some other active tectonic regions, but your context is peculiar to you. But the sort of things I always like. I like my portals to be created with an artificial structure that extends well beyond the actual point of entry into the mountain, so that I've got protection if there's a movement from above. I do stabilization works further up, obviously up above my portal area. Just the really practical things in the portal areas to try and mitigate the risk of being injured there. Because my experience is it's just such a high risk, it's just such a high risk area. But I'm not really helping. I don't think I've added anything. It's a little bit like how to go 4 kilometres underground under the Himalayas. How can I mitigate the risk? My goodness, you are in the most difficult conditions. It's, like you in the area you're talking, I'm assuming you have a lot of earthquakes and things as well?
No, sir, not recently. And although it is in seismic 4 zone, not really, not big earthquake we are facing. This is just like the fractures are there, so we are facing this type of problems. To see,
Right.
yeah, the rock is very fractured, and so we thought, like, including stitching, we should go for rock fall protection work also, so that the portal will be very safe, and canopy will be there, and in on the above it portal will be safe. The height is not much, sir. Overburden is around 30 to 30 meter. So height is not much. It is on the highway. So I wanted to know, is there any collapse of portal you have experienced, investigated, so you can share those things with us.
Yeah, I don't have anything that I can share with you now, and I'm not claiming to be an expert in that type of portal stability. So I claim many things, but that's not one of them. But can I just say 30 odd meters of overburden to people other than in India, that's a lot. So because your mountains are kilometers, you might think that's very little, but for me, that's still a lot. And I'm humbled by the scale of your engineering works, and even your question is humbling to me, because just your first problem is huge by world standards.
Okay, sir.
Has any? I'm sorry, I can't give a more clever answer than that. I don't
No,
have a more clever answer.
no, sir. The
Yep.
things you said, it is very helpful to us, and
Okay.
it's very humble and for you to share and give us time. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for coming and sharing your time with me as well, and with Bibin. Does anybody else have a question for me? I'm very informal, as you probably can tell, and I'll tell you if I don't know, like I just did. I'm not, I don't. I mean, the tunneling I've seen in India has been some of the most extreme I've seen anywhere on Earth, and so that's why I'm humbled by even the questions. It's what the engineering achievements that you're doing there, particularly in the Himalayas, it's just remarkable. It doesn't get any harder. Well, unless you want to go through to the mantle, through the actual crust, but and I know there's some people trying to do that, but I don't think that counts. So no, you're up there. Like, it's just fantastic. Any other questions for me? No? Well, if there's, oh, hang on, there's a hand's come up. Is that Aaron Kumar again? Hello? Is
Arun Kumar, you are yeah.
Yeah, you're able to hear me, Professor? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
yes, I can hear you.
Now, there's some unexpected ground conditions where the contractor can, for example, if it's the ground is too hard, where there is where the contractor takes more time. For example, construction of underground stations where uh, where the where the expected ground is too hard, then and there is a breakage of a drilling machine, and where it's not able to manage the construction based on the time schedule. So this contractually, the claim should come through the client as well as on the contractor. I mean to say, is any changes happening with
Yes, there's
unexpected ground conditions? Yeah.
You're my new best friend by asking me this question, because this is actually the subject of the second presentation, which is in, I don't know, a week or two's time. There's some big changes happening here, and I'm hopeful, and I can't say this more strongly. I'm so hopeful that fairness returns to contracting, because it has been the case, as you just pointed out, that where a contractor experiences ground conditions which are far more severe than they ever could reasonably have anticipated, they have to bear the burden of it. They bear the expense. They bear the penalties for late delivery of the project. They bear the cost of the broken machinery. They bear the labour cost. They bear all of that. But over the last few years, there's been a push for fairer contracting. And what we mean by fairer is we say, tell us, client, what we can expect as the ground conditions, and we will put in a price based upon that expectation and the sort of ground support and excavation which we could reasonably deliver to address that particular type of ground condition. And if the ground condition is worse than what you've told us to presume, and as a result of that worse ground condition, it has an impact on our progress rate or upon the type of support and the costs associated, that is a compensable event, and we'll have a table of costs agreed in advance. So we don't have a legal fight. We just say, oh, we had to go to this type of ground support. We go to the table. This type of ground support means you get so many lakh more per metre. Done, finished, halas, end of it. And that type of contracting is re-emerging because we've seen around the world a lot of very good contractors go broke, as in collapse, because the ground conditions have been worse than expected. And we've seen governments terribly embarrassed by failed projects. And so there's a move to a fairer way of contracting. The World Bank is very keen on this, so is the Asia Development Bank. And it's the subject of the second presentation in the series, where I go through the development of that more fairer approach to the contracting. So your question, normally under a normal nasty contract, it's tough luck to the contractor and they can go to court and fight, but probably they'll lose. But there's a change coming. I hope that's a reasonably, not comprehensive, but an overview. And if you're interested, come to the next presentation, which is more legal, and we'll deal with some of these new contracting methods for fairer contracting where ground conditions are a big issue.
Okay, Professor. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for the question. And is there anybody else have a question for me? Can I just ask one thing? If you think you know where my project might have been that I used as an example, could you not tell anybody? And could you not discuss where it might be? Because I've been very open with you. I mean, I haven't said where it is, and I've got no information there which suggests where it is. But if someone's been there, they'll know. And it wasn't my intention to bring any disrespect or shame to that particular project. It was merely to illustrate how easily things can go wrong. So I ask you, as my friends and my colleagues, please don't talk about the place if you think you might know it. It could make my life miserable. So, or unless you don't like me. If you don't like this presentation particularly and you want to cause me trouble, talk about it, and then I'll be in big trouble. But please don't talk about it. There's no information. I don't want to identify anybody. I'm not trying to cause trouble for anybody. I'm just trying to share knowledge. Any other questions? If there's not, do I just say thank you for coming and look forward to seeing you next time, and enjoy your wonderful Himalayas and stay safe and don't go kissing your best friends if you don't live with them and all those sorts of things with COVID. So I think that given the silence, that's what I'll do. So thank you for having me. Look forward to seeing you again. Bibin, thank you for joining me as well. And and if you enjoyed the presentation, tell your friends. It's not as boring as you might have imagined it was going to be. And thank you for your time. So I'll wave goodbye. And no one's got any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.